What? I'm sorry. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Decon the Sweet Sheet. And I, of course, I'm here with my co-host.
My ear just started ringing.
Yours did? Someone's talking shit.
Which is one of them.
They're like, that bitch Laura Slasher. You know, so
wow.
that's your intro. The bitch Laura Slasher.
Well, luckily I don't care. So
yeah, well, and we people are like, well, no, shut up. Today we have a very, very, very special episode. It's not actually that special. We're going to talk about Jimmy Snuka and the what would you call it?
Murder.
The murder. I was going to say the accidental death because that's what they like end up. The murder, you know, the murder of Nancy.
Yeah.
Nancy Argentino. What a stupid name. Anyway,
she doesn't use it anymore.
Mira, boludo, mira, te estoy diciendo, che. Argentino. So, anyway, so do you know who Jimmy Snuka was before this?
Before, like, we decided to do this?
Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned it before.
Jimmy the Superfly.
Other than that, no.
He was a really big deal. He was seen as the, of course, the Superfly. He would do these for the time. They were seen as these like awesome, like high flying maneuvers. By today's standards, are kind of lame. Yeah, see, like, but that's him as when he's old. That was like
even then. I can't do that. Break everything.
What, jump that high? Well, I mean, fuck. Look, you know what's crazy is after he was lost in court, for the accidental death with a murder, and he was ordered to pay all this money, and all these things came out and all kinds of shit. All that picture was post all of that, so isn't that crazy? He's still only now he's wearing the suit. You ever seen Beverly Hills Ninja?
I don't think so.
All right, well, fuck, you're missing out.
Well,
but anyway, there's a scene where he's wearing like a tiger stripe like suit, and they're like, "Hey, nice suit. Who shot the couch?" So that's what that suit. Bring that shit right up again. Beef tips. Look at that. That looks like somebody's insane, like Mexican aunt. That.
Me.
Yeah, but it's like you fucking just jumping like that. Dije cabrón que no, and he fucking just jumps. Anyway. So yeah, this guy was seen like as a high flyer. One of his most famous moments was he jumps off this steel cage, and he does like his diving crossbody, and he lands on somebody. And people were like, "Holy shit!" By today's standards, that's fucking tame. It's like, really, like girls do that,
But like, okay, so what are today's? What's like the crazy thing? Because I don't watch it.
Well, you gotta think they have things called tables, ladders, and chairs, where they're like jumping off of these 20-foot ladders. They're stacking ladders on top of each other. I mean, ECW, they had scaffold matches where they were fighting up there, and we got to cover a wrestler named New Jack. This motherfucker was crazy. He actually threw somebody off of that with the intention to kill them. He said, unfortunately, he says they hit the tables, so they didn't like fall flat and die. So I mean, the table broke to fall. So just shit like that. I mean, holy shit! Look at the Hell in a Cell with Mick Foley and the Undertaker. How he threw him off the cage. Remember, and he landed, and apparently, You remember we watched it? That was crazy.
That was ridiculous.
So just stuff like that. But for this era, this was crazy. Like he's high flying. He's gonna jump off the top turnbuckle. But he was a pretty big deal. Like also he had charisma, like the way that he did things, like his moves. Some of them were like way out there. Like he hit you, and he spin his hands, and then he hit you again, and he would do this all the time, like Superfly, and he hit you that way. And he hit you in the stomach, and he get down on one knee because you were like hunched over because he hit you in the stomach, and then he like hit you, and then you just like fall over, and it was dramatic.
Did you do the choreography for it? Or?
Yeah, I'm the one that planned it. How old was I? Let's see, in 1983. How old do you 44.
Think I was? You knew the whole dance.
I was 44. Um, made me no, but a lot of people said that in his in-ring work, hold on, producer, can you edit this, please? Make me sound smart. Okay.
Nope.
In-ring work
Mhm.
was seen very good. Like he was professional, like in the ring, the way he did things. Like he never really hurt anybody in the ring. You know, in the ring. Like
Oh,
Bret Hart talked about him, and Bret Hart was like, yeah, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. He was very professional guy. And I remember when he was just doing all his maneuvers, Vince McMahon and Bret Hart were gay together. So, and
that
Bill Goldberg's a piece of shit.
is that the thing that came out not too long ago? Because I mean, you said that you had heard about it a long time ago, but like
Yeah.
recently they were talking about it again.
No, what happened was Bret Hart loves to do these talks, right? When people are like Bret Hart, because he's a big deal. He's the excellence of execution, and the only thing that Vince McMahon excellently executed was Shawn Michaels' butt cheeks. So he does these talks where people ask him questions. He's a hero in Canada. He's a really good wrestler. Like he's a bad motherfucker. Like he can fuck people up. Like he can fight. Him and his brother, they can legitimately fight.
Hmm.
Well, not anymore. His brother's dead, but back
I
when
was
he was alive.
gonna say.
Um, so he does all these things, and and when people were talking about like, what is your opinion on, and a lot of this, I believe, is just them trying to egg him on,
Hmm.
because he's always been very serious about the business. Like even when people knew that it was all an act, he refused to let it go. He was like, gotta protect the business. It's very old school mentality.
Yeah.
Even now, he still protects the business. And he alluded to Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels, being gay, and you could tell the way they look at each other, and all that kind of stuff. You could tell they're gay. And people they ran with it. They're like, holy shit, like he said they were gay. So that became a giant meme, like, oh, Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels. But this has always been a rumor. I
Hmm.
mean, I've heard about this, fuck, like I don't know, 12 years ago, and there's interviews with Rowdy Roddy Piper, who talked about, Pat Patterson, like going to a young Shawn Michaels hotel room, and Vince McMahon possibly watching, just things like that. So it's old stuff. Like it's always been the rumor. So
Hmm.
it's like, that's why I named him the Heartbreak Kid. He broke my heart. Anyway, um, so yeah, anyway, back to Jimmy Superfly. um
Hmm.
he was a guy that he was a fan favorite. He was a baby face. People are like, oh, Jimmy Snuka, he's badass, and he was like people's heroes. But they had no idea that in reality, outside the rings, he was a real piece of shit. Like
Hmm.
legitimately, like very violent against women, had multiple affairs. He was married, um, was known to indulge in cocaine. And one of the first things he wants to do when he indulged in cocaine was to go get a hooker, and he'd beat her ass. Um, People witnessed him choking girls out, like hands on, like, and not out of like, choke me, like, oh yeah, tell me, who owns you, as he's choking you, like legitimate, like what like legitimate, like violent, like out of a rage, and then the
Hmm.
girls would go limp, and he just like run out of there, just like and he was just like a very like violent individual. So even when people when this came out many years ago, like, oh, he beat up a girl, because this was everywhere, right?
Hmm.
He beat up a girl. People wouldn't believe him. They're like, she's making this up. Jimmy Superfly, he's a good guy. And that's the it's so and I use this word for a lot of things, but I'm gonna say it. It's overused, but I enjoy saying it. It's very romantic when you look at the era of wrestling, and how it was magical. I mean, you thought that what you were seeing on TV, this is what you get, no matter how ridiculous the premise was, people, they bought it, and that's called kayfabe. Like the whole world in there. Sergeant Slaughter, he wasn't a real sergeant, like Slaughter, like what the fuck, but people would thank him for his service. Like, thank you for your service, Sergeant Slaughter. And I'm like, geez Louise, you know.
Oh.
There was a storyline where if Hulk Hogan won, they were gonna release the hostages in the Middle East, so Hulk Hogan won, so all the hostages were, people thanked him, like, thank you, Hulk Hogan. Let me tell you something, brother. I
For
released those
real.
hostages, dude. They all went and they all thanked me, so it, it was just so anyway. So with Jimmy Superfly, a lot of the people who was around him at the time, they enjoyed working with him because it was a good payday, right? Because he was Vince McMahon's, guy. He was his guy.
Mhm.
He was the star of the day, and this was in the beginning when people of Polynesian descent were seen as like superstars. You know, they were the toughest. They were this, so they had, Jimmy Superfly. They had the Tonga Kid. They had the crazy Samoans. They
Do you
had
think
the
it has to do with like the size? Because like a lot of
yeah, they're
Polynesian
big.
people are very tall and like just
Yeah,
big in general.
and they're big.
Mhm.
And wrestling started this trope that you can never headbutt a Samoan because their heads are just so much harder. So this was a trope to this very day. To this very day, you see in wrestling where like Roman Reigns is in the ring and somebody will come and just like headbutt him, and then they're like kind of like stumbling around, holding onto their heads because, and people are like, "Wow, like why is he doing that?" It's like that's always been a trope. So people like the payday, right? They're like, okay, I'm gonna get a
Mhm.
good paycheck from working with him, but then as soon as the match was over, like I gotta get away from him, because he would go and he would blow his money on drugs. He would blow his money on hookers. He would go and he was just a party guy, and a lot of people in the wrestling business are like, yeah, I partied with him, but as soon as the coke was done, I was out. As soon as the coke was done, they left because number one, why are you going to hang out with this guy if the cocaine's gone? Number two, this guy's about to go nuts and he's probably going to take it out on a woman, and I don't want to be around for this, you know.
Yeah.
And there was no interfering, by the way. There was no like, get off of her because that could cost you your job, you know.
Which I find insane. Like you hear it all the time about a lot of the true crime things that we've done with like wrestling. Like if something happens, you just be quiet.
Mhm.
You don't say anything. You don't talk about it. Vince is gonna get pissed at you. Like
It was a code
you're
of
just
honor,
quiet.
and they called it the boys. Everybody that was a wrestler, they were the boys. Like you never snitch
Mhm.
on one of the boys,
It's gross.
yeah, and if you were, and that's the thing, they said that if you were popular enough, you can do whatever you wanted because Vince will take care of you, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
I
to
mean,
the
he did.
point,
Did he bail him out?
not only did he bail him out, he told the cops, "Don't pursue this. Just leave it alone." He's got a big events. He's got, they're like, "You got it, Vince." You know, there's a documentary out there that talks about this, and the chief of police now he's talking about what happened because he was like a cop back then, and this guy looks as dirty as they come. Like this motherfucker, he's got a mattress at home just with a bunch of money with blood on it. There's a dead hooker under there. Like this guy just looks slimy and corrupt as fuck,
Mhm.
And he talked about how Vince just let them know, like, hey, I'll take care of this. We trusted Vince. He was always good on his word. And it's like, no, it wasn't, you motherfucker. You took a payday,
Yeah,
you know.
it's money.
Um,
It's the ridiculous amount of money that he had and has can get a lot of people to do a lot of ridiculous things.
a lot of things, the money, and also the wrestling prestige. People love, like I told you, the kayfabe people love the wrestlers. I mean, um, Hacksaw Jim Duggan would walk around with a 2x4 and he'd wave an American flag. And if you were to step up to him and being like, hey, I don't like you hitting on my girl, that meant that you hated America and you were going to get 7 guys jumping on you and beating the fuck out of you for like, this man's a patriot. He fought for our country with that 2x4. He went to the Middle East and, defeated the Palestinians, and all that kind of shit. And it was just
Oh,
so crazy. So we talked about Grizzly Smith, right? How Grizzly Smith,
mhm.
the power he had because he was so popular. So same thing with this. So let's actually start now with the case of what happened. Okay, so at the time they called them arena rats, which are like groupies. This is a group of girls that loved wrestling so much that they would bang the wrestlers and they
They
were always
whore
around.
themselves out.
They would whore themselves out just to hang out with wrestlers. They would go from wrestler to wrestler. They were known. They knew each other. A lot of them were fat. A lot of them were. I'm serious. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
a
you
lot of
told me.
them. Yeah, a lot of them were fat, and the wrestlers, fuck, they loved them. To the point where there's a great promo by Dusty Rhodes. I guess that these girls were so, and these were bigger girls. These girls were so used to banging like the ravishing Rick Rudes, these people with like these chiseled bodies, that they developed kind of like an ego. So when
Mhm.
Dusty Rhodes went to go hit on one of the girls, she called being fat, she called them fat. So he did this great promo where he was talking to this girl and he's like, I want to tell you something, but before I go down in the ring and I take on Ric Flair, I'm gonna talk about this fat lady right here in the front row. This fat woman, I'm talking to you. You know you fat woman. I went to go talk to this woman and tell her all kind of sweet things, and she looked at me and she said, Dusty, you ain't nothing but a whale. Yeah.
Says the whale.
Says the whale called him the whale, but she's like, no, are you kidding me? I'm gonna go sleep with this wrestler who has a 6-pack and he's gigantic,
Mhm.
because that's what they wanted. John Cena tells a
Yeah.
great story. So these girls, that's what they did. They went around, they went from wrestler to wrestler. Wrestlers knew this girl, and Nancy Argentina, they knew this girl as a very friendly, very open-minded girl that loved to party and loved to hang out. So that should tell you a lot,
Mhm.
about these girls. A couple of the wrestlers dated them too. Like they dated them, but they're not exclusive. They're not exclusive girlfriends. They're not somebody that they're just they were the girls that they dated while they were in town.
Yeah, he called her, I don't know if it was in his book or where it was an interview, but he called her, his, like, Northeast girlfriend or something like that. I don't know what he called it. It was something like his girlfriend in, this side of the East or whatever it was. So whenever he went to
Northeast.
that side, he would
Yeah.
meet up with her, hang out with her the whole time.
Yeah, with her. And if she wasn't like strictly his, like he was like, you're
Mhm.
mine.
Yeah,
She
he
would
said,
just
like, she understood the arrangement. She knew that he
Mhm.
was married, and he was kinda just,
She was somebody that everybody knew, everybody partied with. So one fuck. See, there's so many, and this is the issue with wrestlers. A lot of them were either drunk, their memories are fucked up from like getting hit in the head, or they were on drugs. So I've heard at least 3 different stories when it comes to who this girl was in relations to Jimmy Superfly.
Mhm.
One thing is for certain, her sister hung around the wrestlers too. Her sister was known to be like a tag along. I'm gonna go,
Mhm.
she was there. So, but one of the stories that I heard was that they were at a bar and Jimmy, being Snuka, ripped a line of cocaine right on the table. Didn't give a fuck. In front of everybody. A lot of people would go to the bathroom like a classy person, right? They snort cocaine from a toilet seat, you
Yeah.
know, or from a or
Nothing
from
but
a
that.
hooker's ass. So,
It's the only way to do
but
it.
that's the way to do it. So, but he not him, right? He did it right in front of everybody, and then people are like, "Oh, here we go." So a lot of people would stand up and they would kind of like, or they would turn their back because it's like, whoever, if there's a girl next to him, like she's gonna get it. And a lot of the girls also knew, I guess, that as soon as he started doing cocaine, they would do a bump and they would kind of stand back or walk away, or go get more drinks and then
Yeah.
not come back. So the story was that he had this girl with him, right? And he had this girl, and they're like getting hot and heavy. They're on a table. They're both high on cocaine, and then he proceeds to attack her. He starts hitting her. He starts beating on her. He starts punching on her, and then finally she gets up, and then she's like, "Fuck this, fuck you, I'm not doing this." And he goes to stand up to like to go after her. And the girl that was with her, it turns out to be her sister, was kind of like, "Hey, like if she's not gonna go with you, I'll go party with you." So he's like, "Okay." So then they both start doing, and they leave.
Mhm.
Right. That's one version of the story that I heard. Um, another version of the story was that she was his main girl, not the sister. The sister was just there, and the roles were a little bit reversed.
Yeah.
Only the sister didn't go with him. The sister was not like, "I'm going with you to the hotel." The sister was kind of like, "I'm just gonna go with this guy." So same scenario, beats the fuck out of her, Only instead of like leaving, she just goes to, "Nah, I'm just leaving. I'm go with you." So they take the party somewhere else, right? Like, let's go, let's go to the party. And they're partying at a hotel room, and it's not, again, this is where
This
the
is
stories begin to get
this is
mixed.
one of the stories. Yeah.
One of the stories.
Hmm.
One of the stories is that it was Jimmy, and it was a guy named Buddy. What the fuck was his name? He was like a manager, right? And he was partying, and they were just sitting around, and they get into a playful altercation, right?
Hmm.
They get to a playful altercation, and she falls backwards because he like did a quick movement towards her, and she hit her head, but she was fine, right? She's just
Hmm.
laughing, they were fine. And then it was whatever, and they continued to party. Then turns out she's not okay, she's fucked up, and let's just let her sleep it off. Let's not call the cops. Let's just wait. She's fine. She just needs to sleep it off. Because of course, when somebody hits their head and they're not acting right, you let them go to sleep.
You let them go to sleep.
You let
Yeah.
them go to sleep.
You don't let them
No,
sleep.
do not do that. You gotta look at the eyes, make sure they're not concussed. And if one of the eyes can't focus, like they're both different sizes, the pupils don't dilate at the same time, that person's concussed. Do not let them go to sleep. Seek
Or
medical
if
help.
they're or if they're dilated and do not,
Yep,
change.
and do not
Oh,
focus. They're supposed to. When they look at different things, their eyes are supposed to shit, but they don't. Anyway, that's one story. Another story was that she slipped in the shower, and Jimmy came to the hotel room like, "Hey, honey, I'm home. Oh no, what happened? I'm gonna call." And this wrestler said we both showed up at the hotel together and we found
mhm.
her. So many different stories, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Um,
So I started reading the police report and like the court papers and stuff. Apparently, he told around 7 or 8 different stories within those first couple days that it happened. And then apart from that, they added, like transcript like from his book. They added stuff from like a podcast. They added a YouTube link. Like he's changed the story very little, like tweaked it or whatever, at least like 10 to 15 times.
yeah, and they're not like, so normally in a story like that, if something's not right, you could be like, I found her facing to the left, and I was like, oh, I found her facing to the right. Like with moments like that, that's one thing. Or like, I was wearing shorts, and it's like, no, I was wearing pants. Like it's just small things, small details like
Mhm.
that. It's not, I wasn't there, I arrived and she was this way, I pushed her outside, she fell outside, she tripped, she was drunk, fell down the stairs. It's not
He
complete.
changes locations also. So there's some
Yep.
that he told that they were driving to Allentown, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and she needed to pee. So he stopped the car. She gets out and pees. And when she is coming back to the car, she jumps over like a little stream, slips, falls back, hits her head. And then another one, I think like around the same time, he tells that same story, except in this one, he looks to the side, she's already on the ground, and he gets out and helps her up. Another one, they're already in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing, jumps, she slips, hits her head, like, oh, let's go eat. He puts a lot of detail in it, which I feel like when
That's
people do that, it's
that's a
you're
lie,
lying. Yeah.
because
Like
they're filling in, they fill in the small details except for the main thing.
he
you
talked about
know
like she wanted egg rolls, and then she's like, I'm
she,
not hungry, and like what,
I'm
like
not.
they don't care about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's not
So
what.
mhm.
A lot of that is added there just to like, so they can like try to remember what they said or to make it up as they go. So another story that he told, and what's hard is that, and I'll get to that in a minute with the why a lot of people lied. So another story was that they were partying and they started to argue,
Mhm.
and he pushed her, but he pushed her and walked away. And as he was walking away, and this is corroborated by somebody else, right? And then later he said that didn't happen. So that's how you know that it. So he said that he pushed her like out of anger because she was coming at him and he was trying to defend himself. So he put his hands out, pushed her, and she was stumbling backwards. And he turned around to leave. And then when she was stumbling backwards, she fell and hit her head against the nightstand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and then this guy said, he was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. You know, he said they were play fighting. He said they were play fighting when he said they were arguing. He said they were play fighting. He pushed her and she was stumbling backwards. He left the room and then she fell and hit her. So you didn't help her like on the way down, like, hey, let me, you know,
Yeah.
she
See, and
hit her head.
he does tell those two things. Like he says that they were arguing. He admitted to the police that he hit her. He said that he hit her and then she like fell. He says that he shoved her and she fell. But then he also tells them that same day, like we were fooling around outside and she like slipped or I pushed her too hard or like we were like wrestling too much or whatever. She fell, hit her head. But like you can't change it like that when somebody's dead. It's crazy.
So she dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the most reliable story comes from Atlas, because he was a guy that didn't give a fuck. He didn't care. He told the story. Yeah, I tell you straight up. A lot of people don't want to tell you the story, but I'll tell you the story right now. This is exactly what happened. He said one of the girls that he normally party with. So he was talking about the girl that he normally parties with.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not how he talks.
No.
He doesn't talk like that.
Give him a lisp.
Well, I mean, I give all black people lisps. He said that the girl that he was partying with, you know, was also one of these girls. He ended up marrying this girl, by the way.
I think she was I don't know if it's that exact one, but the person that he's talking about, she was dating what's his face, like at the time, kind of.
He ended up marrying. He changed the name in the book because he didn't want to put her name. So that's probably what happened. It's like it was this girl. Mm-hmm. He later says her real name in an interview, and it's like, dude, come on! I thought you were protecting her identity. In the book, he gave her a different name, but this was a girl that got around, you know. And he ended up marrying this girl, and they were partying. They were doing drugs together, and she saw him punch her. By the way, punch her in the face. And then not once, but twice, and then shoved and then grabbed her and then slammed her head into a nightstand, right? Slammed her head. She said that it was more than, and she admitted that she was on coke because they were partying, but she said that she watched him slam her head and then she stumbled and fell down. Then he grabbed her and like rammed her head into the, so then they waited, right? She ran out of there. She got the fuck out of there. And you know, she came back to check up on her and she was still there. And then finally they called the cops, I think because she panicked or something, but they ended up calling the police. She went to go talk to the cops and told them what happened. The cops were like, hey, let me talk to him, you know, and then he told this bullshit story about what happened. At first he started to say like, yeah, we did get into an altercation. I did hit her. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, I just need to figure something out. So he's like, let me call basically your boss. Let me call Vince and kind of figure it out, like what's going to happen here. So they call and
called his daddy.
Yep. Called his daddy, fucking whore. So he ended up calling Vince and the cop was like, we'll take care of this. Just get out of here. So she ends up going to the hospital. They waited for by 15 hours, right?
Yeah, so in the autopsy, let me just show it. I highlighted, you know, what she died of multiple things, obviously. Jeez Louise, brightest thing ever. So she had a bunch of cuts and bruises and things all over her body. The autopsy man said that it was suggestive of mate abuse. So, you know, that he had been like hitting her, whatever. It says the pattern of which is consistent with a moving head striking a stationary object. So it could have been that she did fall, but
it wasn't.
It wasn't that she just slipped and fell. It was more like he pushed her.
It was more there was force behind it.
Yeah. So the B, you know, the brain, the injury, that is a fracture at the back of the head, at the back of like the skull,
You know
which
what's crazy?
you know push.
You know
Yeah,
how fucking hard that part of the skull is?
yeah.
That's the kind that, is it's supposed to be super the front and the back are very thick because that's what protects you from falls because you
Hmm.
fall as a kid, as an adult, you fall and your head makes that sound and you don't crack like an egg. You know how
Yeah.
hard you have to. And this motherfucker was
Well,
at the time,
he was big. Yeah,
he was a big dude.
he was
Pull up
big
a picture
compared
of him. Do
to
you have a picture?
compared to her. Yeah, compared to her. Hold on, let me just. So the crazy thing about this is that it's non-displaced, which means it didn't shift.
Hmm.
So had they called an ambulance quicker, or just like whatever, it's treatable.
Yeah.
It would have been able to be treated. Literally, like they tell you, like you still need to be seen by a doctor, but it can be treated with like rest and being monitored. You know,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They waited 12 to 24 hours.
That's a big dude.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now
Very large
imagine that motherfucker grabbing you and slamming your head into a.
compared to her.
Yeah, look how tiny she. That's fucking crazy.
Yep.
She looks dumb. Um. So yeah, she's tiny. Like next to him, fuck, she looks like a fucking scarecrow. So so. But anyway, so at the same time that she was rushed to the hospital, there was a wrestler that got into a car accident. Right. Got into a car accident, and a couple of them got into a car accident. So they were at the same hospital. It just so happened that it happened the same time that they arrived. So so they arrive, and other wrestlers go to visit him. Right, we gotta go see what the fuck's that. Is he okay? Is he whatever? And they run into Nancy and Jimmy Superfly like at the fucking hospital. She's fucked up. She looks like shit, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, what did you do to her?" You know, and
Yeah.
he's agitated, because he's coming off cocaine. He's gonna miss his event. They have to get there because he doesn't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
And so they're doing this, and then after they leave, Vince talks to them, and he's like, "You didn't see anything at that hospital. Like, don't talk about what happened with Jimmy. Don't talk about what happened. You keep this down. You don't talk about it. This is the end of your fucking career. So told to keep it quiet.
Again, even at the hospital, he changed the story multiple times, talking to different nurses and different doctors. He changed the story, saying, like she slipped and I got her, or she slipped and I didn't know, I wasn't
Yeah.
there, blah, 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 which is insane to do it, you know, while she's actively trying to, survive.
Yeah, and he changed the story. And normally procedure is when something doesn't add up, you call the police,
Hmm.
you know. And I don't know if they did, but turns out that nothing, no repercussion, just left. All right, take it easy. I got an
The
event.
police did show up. Um, Nothing happened
No, they're not going to detain him. He
though.
left.
Mm-mm. This wasn't even the first time, though. Like they had arrested him 4 months before this
Yes,
for beating
for
her up.
for punching her square in the face.
He a lot
And
more.
well,
He so the front desk person at that same hotel called the police and said there's a guy dragging a naked girl through the
yeah,
hallway.
yeah.
They show up, they see him doing this. He
He P
dragged her
Diddy'd
into
her.
the room. Huh?
He P Diddy'd her.
Yeah. They see
So
him like dragging her into the room and he's telling them to leave. They end up, like I guess breaking the door down or something. They arrest him. She's like needs to be hospitalized because she's, her
yeah,
back of her head, like
that,
everything is
that's what I,
crazy.
that's what I was gonna say. So he punched her in the face and then proceeds to drag her by her hair.
Mhm.
I don't know if she was wearing a bra or if she was just naked except
She
for
was
her
naked.
underwear.
Naked
Uh,
and she had a sheet.
so he's dragging her, and then they said that she won't stop screaming, so he kicks her in the back.
Ew.
It, the size of this motherfucker. Put that picture up. Look at the size of this dude's legs. That's insane. Like that's a big dude.
Yeah.
Pull up the other one where he's in his underwear.
Um
That one. Dude's
yeah.
got veins on his legs. and
No.
imagine that dude fucking kicking you, with those
Yeah.
stinky Samoan feet, so he ends up kicking her, and I think that I don't remember exactly if I think they said he stepped on her and like stood on her and like walked, to the other side, like basically just like do it like on
On
her.
her.
Yeah, and then that's what caused like a lot of fractures like on her back and everything. And they thought that he had punctured her, her organs from how hard, but he didn't. But she did need to be hospitalized.
Hmm.
She was concussed.
Yep.
Some people said that she didn't remember her fucking name. Like,
Ah,
and
it's so
he
bad.
so he was arrested, right? He was
Hmm.
arrested. He was detained. I don't know for how long, and then you know they got
Not long at all.
then let him go, and then they paid the bail. He gets out, and then it was fine.
I have it
You're
here
good.
actually. He didn't even bail out. The case was disposed by whatever, pleading guilty on a reduced violation, and he paid a fine that was donated to charity. That was all that
Jeez.
happened.
So that ended up happening, right?
Hmm.
So he goes and he does his events. He goes and he does his wrestling like usual. People said that days later, he was partying with other girls. He was doing as if she never, existed, just fine. She fucking dies, and he's fine. Didn't give a shit. So her family ends up, you know, wanting justice,
Hmm.
and Vince talked to a couple of the family members, and I think he threatened them, or he did, or paid them off, or something. One of the two. That just leave us alone, you know. And I think he gave them like I don't know, like a couple $1,000 to like them to shut up.
I don't know when it was, but the family did win.
This was in 1985, I believe. This happened in 1983, right?
The, yeah, the family
So,
did win a wrongful death.
yep.
Um, I think they got 500,000, but then this dude's like, "I'm broke."
I don't have any money, and I will say that he was still wrestling. That's what was crazy. He was
I Yeah, I heard he was making like 25,000 a week.
what I was gonna say is that he was making this money, a month. It's
Hmm.
crazy shit. Like, and the historical moment where he jumps off the cage, he had just killed a girl, and he was making this championship money. So fuck, like, who's worse? The guy that fucking did this, or the guy that knows he did this and then covered it up and then covered up a lot more atrocities. As long as you're filling his pockets, doesn't give a shit.
Like, who's worse, him or Vince McMahon?
Yeah, like how dark is your soul that you're like, well, kill the girl.
They're horrible in two different ways. Vince McMahon is just
Pearl
too
necklace.
insane, insane. Like everything bad that they have ever done, he's just like,
Who
too
cares? The
bad.
reason why I say who's more evil is Jimmy Snuka could have been insane. Like, how they don't have that logic
Hmm.
where, like, oh, why this is wrong. But then you have the guy that's observing this, play out in front of him, and he's logical, just doesn't give a fuck.
And also did it. The whole Janelle Grant. They pooped all over me and all this. Like you can't be normal if you're doing all that.
Yeah. You think it has to do with one of those things where you just have so much money, you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, that's why these people end up doing things that they're not supposed to. We've talked about this. Like I've told, like that's
Yeah.
why they end up, with all these drugs or like the pedophilia. It's just like things
Yeah.
that they're not supposed to
It's just like
have
their
access.
brain can no longer like be stimulated.
No, it's like I have everything I want. What else?
What
What else
else?
is there?
What else is dark? So, anyway, so Jimmy goes on, has a career, does all these things, says he doesn't have the money, doesn't pay shit, no repercussions.
Hmm.
And then he is an old man, writes a book, right? And in this book, they're like, this motherfucker's putting in details, you know, pretty detailed things. So they go and they reopen the case. The family, like, pleads for them to be right.
You know what? Yeah, you know what was part of the reason why they reopened it was, first of
Why?
all, the book, but the guy that did the autopsy report, he was like, I just don't feel right about this. You have to
Yeah.
open it back. It's just not matching up, And earlier when we were talking about it, I was thinking, like this guy never paid the parents,
Yeah.
and then he never paid his lawyers. The lawyers dropped out of like the case. They I think they said he was like bankrupt or something, right?
Yeah. They said he was bankrupt.
Yeah.
But oh, go ahead.
So I was thinking like, why after 30 years with this doctor, want to reopen this case? And I'm like, maybe Vince McMahon failed to give him payments, same way as Janelle Grant.
Buddy Rogers was the guy that I was saying earlier, by the way.
Like how Janelle Grant stopped getting money, so she decided to sue.
Yeah.
What if this doctor that did the autopsy report stopped getting
money
and was like, hey, look at this?
Yeah, you know what was gross about that whole thing was that Vince would write them checks, right? For the wrestlers, that's how they got paid. Wrestlers said that Vince would go and pay them in cash, just that there was no paper trail, just so that you're supposed to be bankrupt, you're not supposed to have money. Here's some cash. Like, how fucking dark. We don't want this family to come after you because you fucking murdered one of their family members.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't want. And you know what's okay? So right after this, right? He kills the girl. A month later, Buddy Rogers, who was Jimmy Snuka's manager at the time, lived in the same neighborhood that he did. I think it was in Jersey, but lived in the same neighborhood. Gets the door. Boom, 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 boom. Opens the door. It's Snuka's wife, eyes shut, bloodied up, half naked, in there, and fucking Jimmy screaming at the top of his lungs, started to get back here. And she gets in the house. He beat the shit out of her, she had like huge like blood blisters on her neck from him strangling her. So the cops are called. The cops show up and they talk to Snuka. They talk to this lady, and nothing happens. They're just kind of like, well.
Was that the first time or no?
No.
Because there's part of like the court papers and stuff is that they did get testimony from, it was like the wife's friend or something that had pictures of her like all beat up, and this lady had to be hospitalized and stuff.
Yeah.
And they gave that testimony, showed the pictures, did all that.
So yeah, no, this is not
like part of the reason why they were like, yeah, like pretty much he did it,
Yeah, no, this is not the first time. This was an occurrence. This is the first time it spilled out into the street.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to hell. And then afterwards, this dude, Buddy Rogers, is like, I don't want to be his manager anymore. And he starts telling the boys in the locker room what happened. Like, fuck, this thing happened. And guess who no longer works for the company? Get the fuck out of here. You're over here telling people that he beat up his wife and that the cops were called. Get the fuck out of here. So get your shit and leave. Do you have an interview of somebody telling a story?
I have a video that has a couple people talking about, I guess, like sort of their reaction to the controversy surrounding, the murder and things.
We were just talking about it earlier. I don't know what transpired. I hope it's not true. I don't know if it's true. But Jimmy's gone through a lot. He fought cancer. And we saw him, about a year ago. He's deteriorated, and this has added to it. And if he did it, he has to live with it. If he didn't, I feel sorry for him.
Ex-wife. She was his girlfriend at the time. Was one of his girlfriends. She used to date him. And she was in the room when the incident happened, and she said, what did he hit her? He went to get some cocaine. She came back with nothing. He just went through an 8-ball that day.
Jeez,
and he came up off that bed and he hit her.
So here he's saying that the girlfriend or whatever it was said that he hit her because she came back with no cocaine. So when they called the ambulance, it was around, it was right before midnight. So that means he had to have like hit her and whatever, like in the middle of the day. So his whole thing of like, I came back at night and she was already like that, it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't
So
make sense. And there's fucking police reports. It's like, dude,
also, yeah, do you know how she was found? Like in her
no.
room? So they opened the door, they walked in, and it's him and two other wrestlers, I think they said, like
Yeah.
in there. And then she is laying face up on the bed. She's naked
That's
and
I've heard that. I've
only
also
has
heard
the sheet up to her neck.
I heard that story that she was on the bed and that she was just up and they thought that she was sleeping and they found her that way. It's like, oh, she was asleep.
Yeah,
You
this
know,
is on the court papers that she was found like that with her eyes open, pupils fixed, dilated. So they knew obviously there was a head injury.
yeah. Other people said that they found her in the tub naked and like she slipped and hit her head. So that guy, by the way, okay, Tony Atlas, that guy, he's so weird. Like he's a weird. I got a funny story. So these guys that did the Dark Side of the Ring went to go interview him about this,
Mhm.
and they went to his home and he lived in a duplex, right? And they're like, oh, okay, he lives in a duplex, and he was married. His wife lived in the bottom of the duplex, and he lived in the top of the duplex.
Like
So
they live separately.
yeah, so I'm gonna tell you. So they show up and there's a bad storm, there's thunder, so they're like, our boom mics keep picking this up. He says, how about we leave and we come back in the morning and we'll do the interview? And he's like, I got something cool to show you, and then they're like, oh, okay, come check this out. So he says they go into the bedroom and they're like, oh, he's gonna show us his wrestling, so they go and he says that it's a video of him like laying down and this girl is stomping on his head and he's counting 1, 2, 3, and then she gets on top of him and starts punching him in the face and he's counting 1, 2, 3, and he's counting it out, and they're like looking at each other like, what the fuck is this? So it turns out this is his fetish. His fetish is to get beat up by a girl, and then
Yeah.
he's like, why is he showing us this? And he's butt naked, like in this video, like getting punched and kicked and stepped on. And then they're like, what the fuck is going on? So they're like, hey, we'll come back tomorrow. So he said, you see that couch over there? It's made out of pleather. See that couch over there? And then they're like, yeah, that my friend sweated on it. It's falling apart. And they said it was literally falling apart. Don't touch it. Don't move it. Don't do anything with it. And they're like, okay, yeah, no big deal. No one's touching that couch. So he said that they were moving in equipment and this guy bumped the couch with his foot. And it was like, ah, shit, and he keeps like putting the cords and everything. And they're getting ready to do this interview, right? They're getting ready to do this interview. And he looks over to the couch and he's like, what the fuck happened to my couch? And he says, look, and he walks over and there's like a little bit of cotton like sticking out. And he starts screaming and he starts saying, I told you not to touch his fucking couch, and he's got a microphone on. So not to touch his fucking couch, not to do it. And he's screaming and he's raving. The guys are like, hey, we'll buy you a new couch. We'll buy you a $10,000 couch. Like this fucking relax. And then he leaves and they can hear him go downstairs. Thum, 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 thum. And he's like, these motherfuckers, I told them not to. And he starts like throwing shit around the house, breaking stuff. And they start breaking and he's destroying things. And they're like, what the fuck? They can hear him because he has a mic. And he's like, these motherfucker. And he's punching things. He's like, my hand's bleeding. And he's like punching all these things. And then his wife comes up and she just like very politely looks at him and she's like, yeah, he wants you to leave. So then they're like, oh, okay. So they leave. And he says that a year later, he contacts them to apologize. Hey, I'm sorry. Right now I'm wrestling. Afterwards, I'll give you your interview. So they're like, all right. Hey, sorry about the cat. Don't worry about it. It was my fault. I shouldn't have acted that way. And, so he gives them the interview and he's talking about, tell us about Jimmy Snuka, So he's like, all right, so Jimmy Snuka, there I was with my girlfriend. And, Bruiser Brody was my friend, and I was there when he got stabbed, and he goes for 4 hours telling stories about, Jimmy, about Bruiser Brody getting stabbed, and he was talking about I was making a drawing for his son, for them, and he sketched, and then he said, as an apology for what happened, he made a sketch for them, and this guy has it framed on top of it. Like so now when you watch Dark Side of the Ring and the guy's talking above, you can actually see like the sketch that Atlas. So that, anyway, so yeah,
let's go back to
weird.
the fetish real quick.
So
you think that he showed them because he also has like a humiliation fetish? I think the girl was like, show him this video.
I don't know,
because like there'd be no other reason. You know?
Yeah, why would you do that? You know, like that is weird.
Oh, yeah, humiliation thing.
And he openly talks about this this fetish, you know, about like, yeah, I like getting hit, you know. So I wonder if that's what it is, right? Like because with this type of fetish is like it's degrading.
Yeah, degrading.
You like to be degraded, and what more degrading thing that I'm gonna get an interview from these people and I want them to watch me get treated like shit. He's probably you know, probably diamond hard, you know, showing these motherfuckers. But anyway, so when people talk about the testimony that that Atlas gave, they say that that's probably the most trustworthy because his story hasn't like really changed. It's only changed here and there, like not too much. But it's the most consistent one. And also he's told other stories where a lot of people were afraid to tell them. You know, they were like, well, I don't want to talk about this. And he didn't give a fuck. I'll tell you what happened. Yeah, I slapped her, you know, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
You know, so he'll tell a story like, yeah, Roddy Piper was doing this. He just didn't care. So they look at his testimony as the most accurate, you know, because he was there for a lot of things, you know. And he was a person that Vince wouldn't trust to tell him secrets. And that's how you know somebody's trustworthy, when Vince doesn't want to tell you shit. You know, like if Vince would go in and there'd be a sketchy deal, he would tell him to leave. I need you to get out of here, you know. So Vince McMahon and Atlas didn't have a good relationship. Vince McMahon Sr. had a great relationship with him. Vince McMahon's dad had a really good relationship with him. This was back when he was friends with or tag team partners with The Rock's dad. You know, so yeah, it's just such a bizarre case, and it really highlights just how dark and just how dirty the wrestling business. Did you ever think that it was this dark?
No. Like when I think it was like when you first brought up doing like the very first one that we did. I don't remember what it was, but when
Fabulous Moolah and Bruiser Brody.
The very first one?
I think so.
So like when I was like reading about it, it was a lot, you know? And it was like, to me, I had told you before, like, it's just like fake, you know, fighting. Like, what's so exciting about it? And it's not like this is exciting, but like it's very dramatic in, you know, behind the scenes. It's a lot.
It is a lot because it's a bunch of carnies, and it's just in the so if you look up wrestling crimes, like you better have a free afternoon because it's so much.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. This is just one of those dark moments in wrestling because it highlights open corruption. Like they're not trying to hide it.
And it was all the way to the very end. Nothing happened.
So can you tell them like what happened to him like towards the end of his life?
Basically, he gets cancer. His health starts, you know, going down. They have him, I guess, like court is trying to like go through with like the case. And finally, I guess like in the end, they say like, you know, he's not mentally fit or like just medically fit at all to stand trial. So they drop all of the things and they're like, yeah, just walk. And then he dies like a couple months later.
That's crazy. That and in the moment he dies,
or something.
Yeah, he dies. All of a sudden, they open up the jar, and everybody comes forward, starts telling all these fucking horrible stories of Jimmy.
That's how it happens. Like when Grizzly Smith died, that guy came out. Oh, and he was with these little girl. How come he didn't say anything when he was alive?
Yeah, at the time,
Like it's
yeah, no,
when people die, that's when they start talking about it. It's gross.
yeah. And what's sick is also the fact that you had people that were still involved in wrestling, and then they like the honky tonk man. We were just talking about this, right?
Hmm.
Um,
I have
the
his
honky.
part of the thing
Oh
here.
yeah, okay.
Heard that story. It circulated around the wrestling world for
Shaun
years.
Burris.
And, nothing ever happened on it. I think she might have stumbled and fell off the balcony or something. And I don't think Jimmy had anything to do with that. I don't believe that at all. I know Jimmy too well. I know he's not that kind of person.
And this is a very fucking crazy statement because number one, when he gave this interview, I believe it was around 2018, 2017, and he was working the wrestling shows in WWE until 2018. So the reason why he was like, she fell off the balcony. He was not this kind of person. He was notorious for being this kind of person. Everybody knew him as this. Even Jim Cornette, as much as that motherfucker likes to defend people, he was like, he slapped girls around.
Well,
You
what's
know?
crazy is that he's saying that like he wouldn't do this. He's not that type of. He admitted to it. He admitted to
Yeah.
hitting her and like knocking her down. He told the police that.
And this motherfucker's still in the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Snuka. Oh man. It's so dark because Honky Tonk, man, he's as entertaining as he was, as a wrestler, he was a company man. He was a guy that you can here, hold down this old lady while I punch her in the stomach. Oh, okay. And he'll do it, and then like, oh, by the way, Vince doesn't want you to say anything on the cop show. What happened? I didn't see nothing. She fell off the balcony. So around this time, he was still doing stuff with wrestling. So of course he's gonna cover for him. And the fact that he was like, I know him too well. He's not this kind of person. This is the person that everybody knew him as. No one wanted to hang out with this dude. Like, especially at a bar, because they're like, this dude's gonna. And that's what's crazy is there's not many stories, well, that I've heard. There's not many stories of this dude getting into a crazy bar fight with a guy. He's always hitting women. Like, that's
I didn't read
one.
anything like that.
Everybody else, like for example, a family member of his, Haku Ming, that motherfucker would fight 5 guys, and fuck them all up. You had wrestlers that would fight men at the bars. You had men that they were like loose cannons. There was never a story of this guy taking on one guy and like fighting. He was always hitting women. That's like when he do cocaine and he felt aggressive, he was always looking for a woman to hit. And then that's what's crazy. And that's a Snuka. So, and he was a lot of people's heroes. To this day, he's still the hero of a lot of people, And it's like, did you know that? I don't want to hear it,
That's what actually Tony Atlas said that Vince would say that to them. Like if something would happen, he'd be like, no, like don't tell me. Like I don't want to know anything.
I don't want to know anything about it. No. Listen to this letter. Janelle Grant wrote it. She's, anyway. Well, that's it, guys. Watch that episode. That's I was actually listening to it today. I was laughing my ass off. I'm like, damn, we're so stupid. So anyway, guys, this episode was brought to you by Loot by Lottie. So you guys can go ahead and order yourself a witch box. Type in the promo code Nightmare. Get 50% off your first box over 30 bucks. Also brought to you by Shadow Nation Podcast. Shaun Burris, he's reigniting his show. I don't know why, but he's doing it. It's about fucking time. So
I wonder why.
Keep an eye out for that. That sexy man, Shaun Burris, Shadow Nation Podcast, Groceries and Ghosts. So check him out. Also by a good friend of the show, Nate, in his book Paranormal Erotic Experiences with Cocaine. So check it out. It's a great book. Who else?
Friends.
More friends of the show. So Dreamscape Chronicles. Check them out. Great podcast. Check them out on Spotify. Also, Render the Darkness. who will be guests on pretty soon. So me and Bean Slasher, we're gonna have a good conversation.
You and who?
So, the Bean Slasher.
Oh, I've never been a new co-host, you got?
No, that's you. You beaner. Anyway, so keep an eye out for them. Also, by the main event, check out his art. It's pretty cool. We'll leave a link, to all his thick girl parties that he's got going on there. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh wait, TeePublic. Check out my art. Yeah, myself. Check out. Get a mug. They're pretty cool. Get the Slasher series. It's pretty good art. Actually, it looks really fucking good in a mug.
There's a post on the channel.
Yeah, so check that out. I impressed myself, almost like when I drive home and I don't kill anybody. So that's it. And remember, guys, to always look both ways, especially when you're splitting an 8-ball in a motel room.
Jesus, what a good weekend.